Welcome everyone to this meeting of the South Kingstown Town Council. It is Monday, November 26th. First item of business is to pledge to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. No, haven't figured it out. Very good. Dale, will you please take the roll?
Council President Collins.
Here.
Council Vice President DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso.
Here.
Councilman McAtee.
Here.
And Councilman Veely.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Item 4 is the approval of minutes of previous meetings. Item A is the work session of November 13th. Item B is the regular session. Do I hear a motion? And November 19th, I should say.
Motion to approve 4A and B. Second.
So moved. Any discussion?
Just a question. I was not present for November 13th, so how would we proceed
So
with that?
I would recommend, so this issue came up about when does one abstain. This would be a perfect issue to abstain on because you weren't there.
But I was here for the 19th, so should we split the
Yes,
two dates?
we should split, we should have, we should split the votes. New motion.
Do I
Abstain as well, Mike, just to set that record straight. Thank you.
Okay, so
Motion or?
So I'll make a motion to approve agenda items 4A and B for the work session November 13 and the regular session November 13.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Yes. I'm abstaining from that vote.
Abstain as well?
All right. With a vote of 3, 4, and 2 abstentions, that motion carries.
And I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 4B, approving the minutes from the regular session November 19.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously and brings us to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda number 5.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. We have no licenses tonight. Oh, that's a lucky ass. Number 7, a public hearing. This is a public hearing relative to an application for renewal of an indoor shooting range license in accordance with the South Kingstown Town Code, Chapter 9, Licenses and Miscellaneous Business Regulations. Article 6, Indoor Shooting Ranges, which Section 9, 158, the term of the license renewal or transfer. And the application is by IDGR 15 LLC, doing business as the Elite Indoor Gun Range, by Mark Fay, member for property located at 371 Rose Hill Road in Wakefield, and designated as Assessor's Plat 33, Lot 30, consisting of 121.57 acres. Welcome.
Good evening, President, Council members. Mark Fay on behalf of Elite Indoor Gun Range, IDGR 15 LLC. I don't know if this is the second or third time I've been before you with the renewal. I know we did start it early before we even opened to make sure we'd have it when we opened. But this is the first renewal we've put in since we've been open. So we're coming up on our first year. I'm sure the paperwork we put in has been reviewed, and I'm sure it's in order. So I'll just open it up to the council if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions from the council?
How has your first year been?
Good. We're over 500 members. The big thing I'm most excited about, most of the, I don't know if you guys have been down there, the parking lot's almost done. We got put off a little with the weather last year, but that's almost completely done. The road that was reconditioned, that was already there, we put the exterior lights up so it's a lot safer for people coming in and out on that road. That's pretty much all done. We're working on a grant with DEM for the, I don't know if you knew about that, we're working on a grant for a trout pond down there. I'm sure Mike will get involved in that at some point if the grant money comes through, but that's going to be beautiful. That's a multi-acre pond. We're involved with Ducks Unlimited. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them. I never heard of them before this year, but they've been around for hundreds of years. Their involvement is basically, we like to conserve the land that we have out there. They like to conserve the ponds and make sure that if they help us with the construction, the plans and all that for the pond, that we agree that it's duck friendly. I said, I don't have a problem with that. So there would be almost like a duck sanctuary there, that we have to build some duck islands and some duck whatever. And I said, well, no, we don't have any problem with that. So, but we've been working with them, but we're getting closer with that. That'd be really exciting. Because that will open it up to the public for fly fishing, trout, that type of stuff. And it's going to really enhance the beauty of the property too.
How big are you thinking again for that pond?
My partner's been working on that one, but it's acres. It's a couple of acres, and we've been involved with DEM with that all along. It's still preliminary. I mean, we're one of the finalists for the grant money, but there's still a lot of planning that's going into that. I know because we have the landfill and the aquifer issue with that, it has to be lined. So we're getting some estimates from the engineering company to line the pond, which is a big expense, so we're trying to figure that out. So, but we get a few more steps, and then hopefully we'll hear soon if we get the grant money.
So it's our understanding from the work session that we've had a couple complaints about noise, potentially related to the gun range. If you could speak to what the indoor gun range.
It's not the gun range. It's the two of the neighbors that moved in recently. One of which was aware that he was deed restricted for the noise, one of which did not know that. But their issue is with shotgun noise. It's nothing to do with the indoor gun range. And so I have no problem addressing it. So what we did, and we've done all along with this project, we had a meeting with those guys a couple of days ago. And what we've agreed to do is, because their properties are closest to the area where there's two of our stands, so the shotgun shells will be going that way. They're behind it. That's an area where we did a lot of plantings with pine trees or something? Pine trees or whatever, because we were aware of the neighborhood. Even though we weren't obligated to do it, we tried to do as much sound mitigation as we could in that area. For the years that they've been open, which I think is going into 5 years now, this is the first time that we had a complaint from the people that actually own those properties, and these are the new people who just moved in. No complaints before, but we do want to try to work with everybody. So what we did, we met with them, and we did some research around the country to see what some other sporting clays facilities did. And what we have agreed to do is, and we're going through a cost analysis right now, is to build 2 specialty stands that are basically enclosed. So if you guys have been out there, if you guys do the sporting clays, it's basically, a couple of 2x4s, and you kind of shoot between the 2x4s. What these would be elevated stands, and then there'd be walls on either side and the back, and a roof that comes over like this. And what that helps to do is to get the sound going in the direction of where you're shooting, and to cut down on the sound going toward the neighbors. So we're putting a plan to get that done with them. But one thing I need to point out, one thing they were complaining about was in regard to sound, was from Frisella's property next door. He's got his own personal outdoor shooting range. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, which is pointing right at Indian Lake. He's shooting high caliber AK-47s, M4s, high capacity rounds, everything out there. And I can tell you right now, the sound from a rifle or even a pistol there's nothing compared to a shotgun. The sound coming from that, I'm convinced that a lot of the noise that they're complaining about, sure, some of which is right where we're there, but the real loud is coming from Frisella's property. Why he gets to have his own personal outdoor shooting range, where he invites people in to shoot there, I don't know if you guys have seen it, if you've been out there. It's basically a little gully, a little tiny berm that he's shooting from an elevated position, a gully, and then the berm on top of it. And you pick that firearm 3 feet up, it's gone. And that's Indian Lake is the direction behind it. We've reported it, and nothing seems to get done about it. But that's a lot of noise. That's a lot of noise. With rifles and handguns do a lot more noise than a shotgun does. So that's part of the problem. We did point that out to the guys that we met with, And I guess they're going to maybe address that with the council at some point to see if we can do something about that problem also. But again, we don't control Richard Frisella.
Not part of this public hearing. Very good. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, at this point, we want to open it up for public comment. Anybody to speak on this issue? Very good. Do I hear a motion at the table?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The public hearing is closed. Do I hear a motion on 7A?
I'll make a motion to approve item 7A as presented.
Second.
Very good. So moved. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. That carries unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you.
Coming year. That brings us to communications. Communication A is dated November 1st, 2018, from Lisa Turner, the Office Manager of the Coastal Resources Management Council, relative to appointing a CRMC alternate subcommittee member for the purpose of hearing contested cases concerning South Kingstown. It's been received, placed on file. What do we want to do with it? It's my understanding that
We spoke about this during the work session. Vin Murray is currently the appointee still.
He's been serving in this capacity.
Does anybody have an issue with reappointing Vin Murray?
As long as Vin wants to do it, I think he would be a good fit for it.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Vin Murray to the CRMC alternate subcommittee member for the purposes of item 8A.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion?
Sorry, Vin.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. Communication 8B is a communication dated November 11th, 2018, from Bill Bailey, requesting the town council to consider increasing the tax exemptions for 100% disabled veterans. It's been received and placed on file. What would we like to do with it?
I guess I would make a motion to refer this to the tax assessor for further consideration.
I'll second that.
Could I ask that maybe, so we're going to be hearing later on, well, it's on the consent agenda, I think, but we're going to be hearing at the next meeting about increasing the tax exemptions for veterans in a number of classes. So maybe we can have some input from the tax assessor regarding options for what can be done for disabled veterans in terms of increasing more than we're already planning on increasing the tax effects of that.
So if it's the desire of the council, we can put together a report indicating what the consequences of this proposal would be and offering language that the council could adopt if it were so inclined.
Yeah.
It also, for that meeting, just a good idea of what neighboring communities are doing as well.
All right, so that's pretty much captured in that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to comments from interested citizens. This is the public's opportunity to tell us what we could be doing better, or just whatever you're feeling. Please just come up to the microphone, state your name, where you live, and go to it. Thank you.
Jim O'Neill, Matunic. Mr. President and Council, probably be best if I address this to Mike. During my 7 terms on the council, we probably had 100 or 200 recusal questions. So this is regarding school committee member Markey and her position. And I guess I thought I was never confused between management and board and employees. So I'm trying to figure out, knowing everything that I was involved with, from capital improvement plans for the schools to budgets for the schools, closing South Road, etc. I just don't understand how she could possibly vote on any of those issues.
So this issue came up in 2017, and school committee council wrote a memo on that issue. I read it. I concurred with the conclusions of school committee council, which is that that she, and again, I'm not counsel to the school committee, obviously. They have their own counsel. But in my opinion, she needs to seek an advisory opinion from the ethics committee to find out which items she can and cannot vote on. I happen to read in the Independent that she states in the Independent that she is seeking such an advisory opinion, and only the Ethics Commission can give her a binding opinion as to what it is that she can participate in or not. Interestingly, Jason Grammett, who is the Executive Director of the Ethics Commission, has also made a comment saying although he had not yet received it, it would be treated like any other individual who has a day job. In her case, it's working for the union, and that the Ethics Commission would in fact respond and give her the benefit of their thoughts on what she could not. You asked questions about, there's some easy ones, negotiations, obviously. There are budget considerations. There's the issue, as you point out, on the Wakefield School. All of that really needs to, I'm not trying to pass the buck, but they're the ones who need to make those decisions based upon her setting out what exactly her job responsibilities are and how that they would interact with her position as an elected member of the school committee.
Can the Ethics Commission ask specific questions, financial, budgetary? How in-depth
Normally,
can
the
they
way
get?
this works, because I've been involved in several of them in other communities, is once the letter comes in, the Ethics Commission actually sets a meeting date, and the person comes to the commission hearing, and there are usually many questions. I've been in the past 5 years to at least 2 of them, and it's by no means a rubber stamp type thing. It is substantive, it is detailed, and it gets into the weeds because their decisions that they then report out are, you ever read one of those decisions? They are very detailed. They have staff attorney that researches all this and writes the opinions for the board depending on what the decisions are.
Okay, and my last thought on that, where is the crossover between, let's say, a vice chairman, chairman of a committee, directing its members, but then not voting in her particular case? Where is that crossover, where she could hold back a vote, but direct where the action goes?
Well, as I mentioned in the work session earlier for the council and 2 school committee members who are here, that if you have to recuse yourself from a topic, you have to do that at the very beginning. So you cannot be involved in directing or making any public comment. At the very beginning of the topic, you have to announce that you need to recuse and fill out a recusal form.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Council.
Hi, Roland Benjamin, live right up the hill. You guys seen me here before, once or twice. I want to talk about 2 things as we're starting to get into the budget process. We hear about the process every year. The first pieces came up. Obviously, the biggest chunk of the school of the town budget is the schools. I'm very familiar with it. So the first step is the initial pro forma presentation. You're going to see that soon, coming in at around $65 million or so. That's going to equate to about $22,000 a kid. I want to talk about just 2 quick things that I hope you'll consider through this whole process. We don't need any questions answered yet or anything like that. I just want to start to talk about these ideas. So $22,000 a kid is where we're starting this process. It's where we've arrived after years of enrollment decline and spending inflation. When I think about spending, I think about guardrails. In the state of Massachusetts, back in 1980, they voted statewide for Proposition 2.5. It's a 2.5% property tax cap. We have the similar cap at 4%, but that came in 30 years later. Massachusetts school districts have demonstrated the ability to live within that cap for 30 years. And as a result, if you take every district that's roughly our size in Massachusetts, we're about, on average, $3,000 to $4,000 per student more expensive here than in Massachusetts. Now, I've been to national school board conferences, and I've learned that Massachusetts is one of the top, if not the top-ranked state for public education. So we're not talking about a correlation of increased spending and outcomes in education. We're just strictly talking about a guardrail. Now, the school committee is presented with guardrails every year. There's the 4% maximum increase they're allowed to ask for as a total town, and then there's a maintenance of effort on the bottom side. We've never really talked about the maintenance of effort guardrail. But what I want to tell you specifically is to in this cycle, think about that guardrail. Think about that idea that if we continue to increase and inflate at 3% and 4% as our enrollment continues to go down, we are going to hit some kind of major incident. We've seen them before. We've seen referendums. We've seen school closures on a whim. We talk about finances like they're not even a part of school decisions, but here we are, probably in comparison to Massachusetts districts, spending about $10 to $15 million more than we need to. That's $10 to $15 million that we could be using for other priorities in town. I want to also just touch on the facility plan. We don't need to go into it at all, but you know that we put a comprehensive facility plan together. It took us almost a year to come to a decision after consulting with many people, thousands of people in the town. I've campaigned about this issue. I've canvassed thousands of doors talking about this. This comprehensive plan, if we did it right and put the same kind of guardrails on the operation of the school and issued some directives and recommendations to the town, we could put this whole plan together without bonding and without borrowing. That would need to be managed creatively and effectively. Now, what I see and what we all know is about to happen is we're going to see a change to that facility plan, this plan that we took a year to put together. That change is going to occur with very little time for architects and planners to put these whole things into this Stage 2 application. And it's also going to be a plan that has to be executed by an administration that is dealing right now with a school committee that has demonstrated in the past that it's hostile towards. We've seen at least 3 of the members push forward a petition as citizens a year and a half ago to remove the superintendent and leadership from the district. We've had additional conversations about that. In that environment, I'm not sure that any application of this magnitude makes sense for this district, especially if at the same time we're taking an operational budget and continuing to inflate it. So, that's all.
Thank you.
Jonathan Daly LaBelle. I just want to offer congratulations to those of you who have been reelected and the new members. I do come to these meetings a fair bit, not as often as I used to, but I'm sure I'll be around, so good to see you. I really just want to speak to a couple things. One, there's been a lot of reports coming out of Go Local Prov having to do with a school committee member, which Mr. O'Neill mentioned. It just seemed like a lot of negative aspersions. This is a duly elected person who is really coming in, replacing people who were not duly elected. So I think give the school committee some time. There's been a commitment to recuse as needed and to look into where that will be needed. So I'm not saying that the concerns aren't legitimate and people shouldn't have questions. But the school committee, they haven't even had a full meeting yet. They just had their election of officers and that's it. So to really, I'd like to see a town council and school committee be able to have some collaboration and communication. And when you start off a relationship with going with kind of a questionable news site, Go Local Prov, to communicate concerns, it just doesn't seem very appropriate. So please give them some time. I wish that had been brought up more clearly before the election, because the person that had those concerns may have had a much lower vote total. Sarah Markey was the second highest vote getter. People know what her position is. People voted for her because they want her to serve. So we saw in 2017 the town council really kind of dismiss community members' concerns about who should serve on school committee when a vacancy opened up. And a majority of the school committee overruled what community members were looking for. And now here we are, after an actual election, voters spoke. And it really sounds like the town council or members of it are trying to, again, overrule community members' opinion. So I think really be very careful. Please try and have an open mind and work together where you can. So a couple other points. I just want to say that there was on town council years ago, there was a NEA member, not within this district, but an NEA member, a teacher, and and as long as I've been here, those meetings have been as well run as any, and the budget outcomes have been as good as any, and the schools performed as well as any other time in recent memory. So I don't think people need to get up in arms about that, because we've actually had that on us. It's a different position, but it still is a similar outlook, and we had really good outcomes. And then I'll just mention, everybody thinks, oh, Republicans are so budget conscious and they're so good at running everything. I mean, look at the country, hello. But the school committee, what we saw last year with a Republican running things, actually we saw the largest tax increase in 10 years. So I think I hope people will give things some time. Don't just go with a knee-jerk thought like, oh, well, this person is going to do this, and if this person's here, this is going to happen. See how it plays out and respect the voters. And the last thing is, I'm a realtor. We have a realtor serving. We've had other realtors serving. And a realtor makes money selling homes, and how they look at real estate and property, how they view their income, their employer, their industry, their associates, planning, zoning, all these things that a town council person decides on. So, what slippery slope are we going down? And, there has to be some good faith that people are going to try and do the best they can for the community they represent. And if they don't do a good job, the voters can throw them out. So, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Hi there. Name's Jason Ralph. I'm from Wakefield. I have this little thing right now. To introduce myself, for the past 5 months, and at least for the next 24 hours, I'm a community member of the Contingency Committee. Before that tenure ends and the committee itself is possibly dissolved tomorrow, I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss the work of the committee and why I think it's of value to the town. Tracking and predicting ebbs and flows of family migration in any town is a difficult task. The Contingency Committee was formed to track enrollment, utilization of facilities, and macroeconomic trends that can affect enrollment, lead to trends that would increase enrollment in future years. And the idea was, if we saw a trend that was on the upswing, we would keep a fourth elementary school open. It's my unfortunate estimation that the new school committee will likely determine the data brought by that committee is unnecessary. Regardless, the work we're doing is important, and I feel can provide immense value to the town, as the amount of family migration required to support 4 elementary schools will require substantial acting and planning on your part. I'm going to give you one example of some of the work that we did that hasn't really been out there. I performed an analysis and submitted to Cropper, which is the demographer that the school committee used, which revealed that given our current known birth rate for the next 4 years, which is 118 children fewer than the previous 4 years, the amount of migration that will be required to maintain our current level of kindergarten enrollment will be significant. It'll be probably approximately 250 additional housing units a year for the next 4 years, on top of what is already sold now. The current state of affairs is in our real estate market. We currently support about 300 sales per year, so that's almost a 100% increase, and it would have to start now. So you can't necessarily predict enrollment just by birth rate, but if you know a level of enrollment that you'd like to stay at or you'd like to be at, you can use the birth rate that we know and be able to calculate how much migration is going to be needed to reach that level. So I think the actual number of building permits over the past 4 years was about 200. So we need about 1,000 over the next 4 years to be able to maintain that level of enrollment. So I think we can all see that type of growth is probably wishful thinking at best. Our taxpayer money can't be wasted in the vain hope that such pipe dreams will miraculously happen. We need to use data and common sense to guide our decision making, and the work of the contingency committee was a great step in that direction. If the school committee dissolves this committee, I urge you to recreate it under the Economic Development Committee or as its own subcommittee, and allow us to continue this important work, and I'd be honored to be a part of that effort going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment from the public? Comments from the table? Very good. Well, that brings us to the town manager's report.
All right. Let's start with the flag report. Not a lot of red this week, which is nice. I will note that one of the issues that we did run into this past week was an early snowstorm, and that sort of caught everybody in the Northeast off guard a bit. Our crews got out on the roads and did the best they could, but we are keenly aware of the fact that winter is back, and we're going to have to up our game again. One of the issues that is new this year, and I mention it here because I want to make sure that the public is aware of this and is keyed into this. We have passed a snow ordinance here in South Kingstown, so it is now the responsibility of every property owner in town whose property abuts a sidewalk to clear that sidewalk. There's been some confusion, I understand, from folks who've been in town hall and spoken to other town employees about there being sort of a special area where only those people in the special area have to remove the snow. That is not the case. The snow removal ordinance requires that all property owners whose land abuts a sidewalk clear that sidewalk. The second part of the ordinance, second part, and then there's a third, which I'll get to in a minute. The second part of the ordinance says that if you live adjacent to, or your land abuts, a priority sidewalk, that is a sidewalk that is used as a path for students to get to schools or is a pathway to a critical area in town, those priority sidewalks will be cleared by the town if you fail to meet your duty to remove the snow. So Everybody has 12 hours to clear the snow, everywhere in town. If you're adjacent to a priority sidewalk, one that has to be cleared so that people can get to school or can get to critical places here in town, we will remove the snow after that 12-hour period, and we're going to send you a bill. So not only are you subject to a possible fine, but you're also subject to the possible expense of time that was put in by the Department of Public Services to remove that snow. The idea with this ordinance is not to be punitive, though. We're trying to make sure that as we go about implementing this new rule here in town, and it's not an unusual rule across the country. Most places have this rule. We were sort of an outlier until this ordinance passed. It's not a punitive rule. The objective here is to make sure that kids are safe on their way to school. We cannot get to every sidewalk ourselves within 12 hours because our snow removal crews are on the streets making sure that people are safe riding school buses and driving their vehicles. We need the help. We need folks to get out and clear their sidewalks. We're not going to come down like a ton of bricks on folks who can't get out there, and there are 3 ways to get a waiver. If you're a senior citizen, age 62 or older, you're eligible for a waiver. If you are disabled, you're eligible for a waiver. And if you cannot get to the snow removal because you've got a work commitment that kept you from being home at the time when the snow fell, you can get a waiver. We're really looking for help. We're not looking to be, heavy-handed about this. But we need your help. We need everybody to get out there and keep the streets, the sidewalks safe. This week we were reminded of that, and as we come into the winter season, we're going to have to keep reminding folks. There'll be a newspaper a newspaper ad in the newspaper this week with those priority sidewalks. If you have any questions about it, give us a call. We really want this to work. We want to make sure that folks are safe. We don't see this as, a big heavy hammer. We see this as a whole lot of shovels out there doing what needs to be done. Beyond that,
just to stop here, would it be safe to say for residents who might be watching or somehow hearing about this for the first time that if in the past magically you noticed your sidewalks in front of your house were cleared, those people are in the priority area?
That's exactly right. In the past, the practice in town has been to get to the sidewalks that are used by students and used by people to access critical medical facilities and that sort of thing. Those sidewalks were cleared by the town as soon as we could get to them. Typically, that snow magically disappeared 12, 18, 24 hours after the snowfall. And what we were finding was that wasn't good enough. We had kids walking in the street because we couldn't get to the sidewalks fast enough. Again, because we only have so many crews and we've only got so many folks who can spend the hours removing snow. But yes, those are the priority sidewalks. And they have not changed either. If the snow went away from I will be careful about that actually. There has been a change in the priority sidewalks, but if your sidewalk had magically been cleared by the town, that is a priority sidewalk. That's correct. I'll also point out that there is a warning built into this ordinance. We're not going to start slapping tickets on folks' homes who aren't removing the snow. If you don't remove the snow, we're going to come up and we're going to give you a warning and we're going to let you know about it, and we're going to give you the opportunity to, help out next time. Other items that I'd like to bring to the council's attention on the report, really staffing is our only big issue. Again, the only other reds here are comp time and, it's comp time. This is what you get when you run a lean crew, and we run lean crews throughout the town hall. So we've got comp time in a couple of departments being an issue. Good news, in the EMS area for 6 or 8 months, you heard me saying comp time. Overtime was killing us in EMS. We've had some recent hires, and we, for the first time, have now had the 2 lowest overtime budget amounts in the last 2 pay cycles that Craig can remember. So we've actually had a positive impact and are seeing a budgetary benefit from getting some new crew on over there. A couple of things that have come up tonight that I'd like to just point out. On the private shooting range that we heard about during the public hearing, I do want the council to know we have been out, we've had the police out, we've had the building official out. At one point, it did appear, we had a report anyway, that a member of the public was inviting people to come in onto his property and to shoot and to give donations for the privilege of shooting. That citizen's been notified that that's not an appropriate way to operate. You cannot have a nonprofit organization or a for-profit organization collecting a fee for shooting. Private owners with a sufficient amount of land, however, can shoot on their own properties, and they can have their friends and family over. So it's a bit of a tricky problem. We're aware of it. We've been out. We've informed the resident of our concerns, and we continue to monitor the situation. On the contingency committee idea, this notion that we do need a committee that is looking at sort of the models behind what's driving a lot of our policies. I've had this conversation with the chairman of the EDC, Larry Fish, and he's amenable to having a subcommittee created by the EDC. It's my understanding that he can create a subcommittee without any need for a council appointment. Certainly an appointment, wouldn't hurt, but he can certainly invite people, members of the public, to come in and serve on an ad hoc committee if the council would like to proceed that way. I do agree completely with the idea that having a group that is really thinking about what leads to what, the sort of dependent and independent variables that end up reflected in our policies and the programs that we operate is extremely helpful. The contingency committee in the 3 months that it was operating was beginning to get a real handle on some really important questions. What happens if the hospital increases its employment base? What happens if the University of Rhode Island decides to build the Bay campus up instead of building the Kingston campus? Asking those what-if questions and beginning to get a handle on the numbers is really an important thing for us to be doing. So I strongly encourage that we do everything we can to support the effort by the EDC. If the council thinks that actually appointing members to the committee to do that is necessary, we'll do everything we can to facilitate that. If it's simply a nod to the EDC, I think they could be up and running very quickly. And then the last thing I want to draw your attention to is there was a memorandum in the manager's report this week asking some questions about leases over at the Marina Park. We've got 2 marinas in Marina Park that are in the extension of their leases. These are marinas that have been in operation for decades. They've been very successful and strong businesses here in South Kingstown. And they've come to the point where they need new leases. Sooner rather than later is always every business person's focus, I think, because they'd like to be able to start planning for longer periods of time than the leases that they're in right now. And I am going to be looking for authority from the council to negotiate leases with those 2 tenants. Before I get that, though, I wanted to make sure that the council had the opportunity to think about what you want to see happen in Marina Park. We're talking about leases that are going to last 20 years, and I think that it's important for the council to contemplate any alternatives that you might think about in that area. Again, very successful businesses, very strong businesses, certainly no complaints from the advisory committees. The Recreation Committee and the Waterfront Advisory Committee have recommended lease extensions. It's just 20 years. I want to make sure that you're thinking 20 years out.
20 years is certainly a long time, And especially if we're talking about something that's right on the water, where we might be talking about sea level rise impacts. So I do thank you for bringing it up. We should probably take some time to consider it. I don't know if it's worth a work session. Do you think that?
So I actually think that there's a number of things that might be appropriate for a work session like this. In fact, I know the planning board had thought about doing a work session. I think that with regard to the goals and objectives, there's some benefit to perhaps, as I mentioned during the work session, having a work session with the various boards and commissions relative to the goals and objectives that they sort of work to implement. I do think that this would fit into a work session around land use. And I think that it makes sense for us to be thinking about a work session sooner rather than later. We've got a major $100,000 study beginning on affordable housing, which again I think is a land use and affordable housing kind of work session. I think it does make sense for us to sort of bundle this in with that. I don't know that a full work session just on the leases is necessary, but I do think it belongs as part of the conversation about development, land use, and the future pattern of development.
Yeah. And it's not something that's immediately pressing. These leases are...
Again, I think that the tenants, and I believe they're here tonight, would like to get this done as soon as possible because you can't plan if you've only got 3 or 4 years. If you're looking to build your business for 20 years, you certainly want to be able to go out to the banks and say, I've got a 20-year lease. You want to be able to go to the vendors and say, you can bring this piece of equipment in that's going to last 20 years because I got a place to put it. So there is some urgency here.
Right, yeah, but we can have this work session.
Absolutely. I mean, we can spend another 4 or 6 weeks in conversation about this and not do any great harm.
Okay.
So are we talking about doing a work session in the next month or so to
Colleen
address
and I
a lot of these things?
Yeah, Colleen and I contemplating, when we might be able to do this. We could certainly do a work session on the 3rd of December. That's next week. It's pretty quick, but we could pull one off. Other than that, it looks like the week of the 10th, sometime at the end of the week would make sense, or the week of the 17th, sometime near the end of the week would also make sense.
Yeah.
I think like towards the end of the 10th would probably be ample time.
We can do
this
doodle poll
offline, I would say.
Doodle poll.
Sure.
Okay. Great. And anything else in here? No, I think that's everything.
Very good. Solicitor's report.
Just to reemphasize what we went over during the work session, that if any issue whatsoever is in your mind with regard to the Open Meetings Act, whether or not you have to recuse, ethical or conflict situation that you think might come up after looking at agenda, give me a call and we'll work through it with you.
Thank you. Item 13 is appointments. Do I hear any motions?
So do we want to have a discussion about our interviews tonight, or?
Sure.
Why don't we have a resolution if a member feels somebody's qualified, and then we can have a discussion about that.
I'd like to make a resolution to appoint Susan Jacobson to the Housing Authority. The only thing I don't have in front of me right now is the term expiring.
It's a 5-year.
Five.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on this appointment.
I was very impressed with Ms. Jacobson in her interview, her application. We did also receive a communication supporting her from Lou Giancola. That was impressive, and I think I could support that appointment.
But at the same time, we had a lot of good people that wanted to get either reappointed
Yep.
or appointed, so I hope we can find other committees for them to serve on.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of appointing Susan Jacobson to the Housing Authority, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. If we could also send a letter to Ken Bowman thanking him for his service on the committee, that would be, or the board, I think that would be in order. And that brings us...
I have one quick question. I'm not sure if it's appropriate right now, but I believe we need another person to the building committee from the council.
So, Rob, what's the makeup of that committee? I know it's complicated, but...
Yeah, Dale is scouring the page here. The issue, as I understand it, is that the council appointed a member of the building committee who was to be, two members actually, who were to be members of the town council. I will say that we've received an inquiry from former council member Liz Gledhill. She'd be willing to serve and has asked that if the council is so inclined to continue her in that position. It is entirely within the purview of the council. My reading of the appointment was two members of the town council to be appointed. Now, at the time of her appointment, she was a member of the town council. It's a matter of interpretation, and if you wanted to clarify that, you could certainly clarify that so as to make that a permanent appointment for that former town council member. You can consider it a void appointment at this point because she is no longer a member of the town council, and appoint a replacement member from the town council, or you can modify the appointment, the composition by simply changing the position to a member of the public or a member of whatever type.
Personally, I would feel more comfortable with staying with a member of the actual council at this time.
And so, as I recall, we made it 14 members, is that right? Okay. But it needed to be at least 11? Is that, all this stuff gets muddled. So the committee will continue to function if we don't make an appointment to fill that.
The committee is not defunct because of a vacancy on the board. Okay. On that committee. And as far as I know, it would cause no operational problem for the building committee if no one were immediately appointed.
But it is a requirement of the application process, I believe, or RIDE, correct?
So it is an interesting question. I don't think that we'd be required, because of a temporary vacancy, to notify RIDE of that temporary vacancy, but it is a requirement of the state regulations that there be a continually operating, continually functioning building committee. If non-appointment by the town council and non-appointment by the school committee were to create a problem that kept the school building committee from functioning, we'd be in jeopardy of being found to be violating that regulation. I don't see that circumstance arising in the position that we're in right now. Right now, we've got a vacancy, if the town council so chooses to interpret it as such, a vacancy from the town council side and one vacancy on the school committee side, if I'm not mistaken. And again, being two members temporarily short is not going to interfere with the operation of the school building committee.
So being one of the council members that couldn't serve because of the times of their meetings, and having a previous council member who's willing, is there a way to continue her appointment as a citizen?
Again, the formation of the committee is a political act. It is your choice what the composition of that committee shall be, with the one exception that it has to be, in order to comport with the charter, a majority town council members, a minority of the membership being from the school committee.
But I also think we should give the opportunity to some of the other council members as well, if they're interested in serving on that building committee.
Right, so I guess my question, I wasn't real clear. Could, if somebody else is able and willing, could we have another town councilor as a second member, because you're one, correct, Brian, and Liz as a community member?
So the answer to the question is it's completely up to the town council how big that committee should be. And again, so long as it doesn't tilt the number, the school committee is also free to add members.
Right.
So long as they don't exceed the number that the council has appointed.
That could get funny.
Again, that's just because the charter says that the majority shall be.
So I guess I'm curious as to what the parameters of the committee are. So we're talking about 11 people or 14 people, and I'm unsure why there would be an even number appointed to any committee, because that gives us 7-7 possibility, right?
Right. Actually, I'm not looking at the membership of the committee. We don't have it on our standard list because it was sort of an ad hoc. It needs to be added to the list. So I don't know the exact number off of the top of my head. The membership is defined by state regulation in part. So, for example, the state regulations require that the superintendent of the schools be a member of that committee. A building official has to be a member of that committee. The finance director, it's actually a finance director, needs to be a member of that committee. So you end up with the possibility of an even number because of state mandated membership. That having been said, the council is supposed to have a majority of the appointments. So the only way that could happen is if the council also maintained the majority of the appointments and you end with an even number. I don't recall it actually being an even number, but you could, in theory, have an even number.
Well, probably not a good idea in general.
No, it's generally not. But again, the building committee, its function, in reality, is to review things and to monitor. It's advisory to the school committee and to the town council in the most part. So, deadlocked votes, it's possible that it could be an issue, but the real work of the committee is reviewing and raising flags when issues come up. It's not so much the deciders, it's the eyes and ears of the school committee and the town council. So it's not a decision-making body in the sense that council and the school committee are.
But it's important because you get to ask questions and understand where they're coming from. And some of the people that sit on there are people from the architectural firm, folks from the maintenance department here, the building inspector, and so forth. And our town manager is on there as well.
I guess the first question is, do we have a second town councilor who's able and willing?
Well, this is not on your agenda tonight.
Okay.
So that committee is not listed.
Yep.
So you can ask if anyone's interested, but the two issues, whether or not you want to change the makeup of the committee and an appointment, would have to wait till the next meeting.
Got it.
Well, wait.
Well, now would be a good time to decide whether we want to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
I think we have to.
All right, let's do that.
So we're putting two things on the agenda, the makeup and also
An appointment.
An appointment.
You want to make one, right?
All right, does that conclude any appointments for tonight?
I think it does.
All right, that brings us to 14, new business. Item D is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Arden Engineering Contractors of Narragansett Park Drive in Pawtucket. This is for replacement of the commercial gas hot water heater at the South Kingstown Senior Center in accordance with all bid specifications in an amount not to exceed $19,598, further described in a memo from the Director of Senior Services to the Town Manager November 20th, 2018, entitled Bid Recommendation Replacement of Commercial Gas Hot Water Heater. Anything to add to that, Rob? This looked like it was sort of an emergency situation, revealed by an inspection, and certainly needs to be taken care of. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve, 14D.
Second.
Very good. We have a second. Any discussion?
I think government is the only place that a gas water heater costs 20 grand, but that's just me. It's a boiler, it's not a hot water heater, I get it.
And I will note, it was substantially the low bidder as well. This is a situation where we had 3 bids in, and this was without a doubt the best.
And it's a large facility, right?
Yep.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. 14E is a resolution authorizing an amendment to an award of contract originally authorized on October 13th, 2015, amended on September 25th, 2017, to James J. Jeremiah and Associates of West Exchange Street in Providence for wastewater engineering, design, and construction management services from an amount not to exceed $252,100 to an amount not to exceed $350,628, including a $20,000 contingency, to be funded from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund unassigned net assets, further described in a memo dated November 20th, 2018, from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager. I don't see John in the audience today.
Anything to add to?
I'm sorry?
Was there anything to add?
Well, the memorandum was pretty extensive. This is the second amendment, so this is the third time we've come at this project. It's a complex project. It's a project that sort of every time you peel back a piece of the onion, you find something new. I will say that, as a general practice, I don't like to do multiple amendments, particularly for large contracts. But we are in compliance with the procurement regulations, and John's happy with the work that is being done and is convinced that the work that has been identified needs to be done. All of that having been said, the money from the enterprise fund is there, the work needs to be done, and the contractor is competent and willing.
John's probably itching for another chance to give us a tour of the wastewater treatment facilities. The corrosion on that sort of storage shed was pretty amazing the last time we went and visited it. Anyway, do I hear a motion on 14E?
Motion to approve 14E.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion?
I guess the only thing I'll point out is, obviously, this is the second adjustment to this contract. Some of these costs are shared by Narragansett and URI, so it's not a full hit to us, so that's some saving grace. But it's a well-run facility, and they do a great job.
Very good. Any further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. Item 14F is a resolution authorizing a joint award of bid to Morton Salt Incorporated of Chicago, Illinois, for road salt for a unit price not to exceed $55.69 per ton, delivered for FY 2018-2019, and not to exceed $55.44 per ton, delivered for FY 2019-2020, along with an award of bid to Champion Salt of Maryland Heights, Maryland, for a unit price not to exceed $47.75 per ton, delivered in 2018-2019. And that's further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated November 20th, 2018. So this is sort of a interesting dual award, Rob. I think that's the first one I may have seen like that in my time here.
The reason is quantities and contingency. You take from the source you have to take from if we can't get salt.
Good. Any, well, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 14F.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? No? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously, and I believe that brings us to the end of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Need a second. Second. Any discussion on that?
None.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That concludes the meeting at 8:35.